Okay. So I want to address a few things before anything else. This is our first recording post-release of episodes.
Yeah.
Oof.
You know what
That's a
they
big
say. You know what they say when you first start something. The best thing you should do is take a 3-week break.
To be fair, work-life balance or whatever.
Oh, buddy. That's rough.
Gee, I wonder who's doing that and editing the podcast and doing everything.
That's why I was like, if we take a week off, I knew we were back. I took the day, and so did Manny. I don't care. Anyway, it's cool. It's cool to release things and be able to say we're a part of stuff. I've never had that happen to me where I'm like, actually, well, I guess the features I've been on the other ones, but like this is something we made.
It's definitely bizarre to see something I made on streaming platforms.
Yeah, it gets sort of weird, and then after a while, it's like sometimes you can get obsessed with the stats and everything. So when that moment comes, if it hasn't already come for you, try to ignore it because it sort of sucks.
What was that? That was the thing of like, I watched a lot of YouTubers be like, yeah, I don't read any comments, and I was like, I'm gonna read all the comments, and I'm like, where are all my comments? Why are there no comments?
Yeah.
There's
definitely a point we need to reach where like we're engaging with enough people who want to comment and probably can't just text us to get their comments seen.
Oops. Oh well.
I guess that's just the struggle of starting something new.
Yeah, that's just life, and I'm wondering how different it's going to be when like we start doing more projects and seeing what we do. Anyway, I had a story I wanted to tell. So I had to drive to Torrance for my job. I won't say what exactly my job is for privacy reasons. Torrance is like 20 minutes past LAX, and it took me like 2 hours to get there in the morning, 90 minutes to get there, but I'm coming back. Totally fine. I had to be drug tested because I'm going to be going to certain areas that require you to be completely sober at all times. So I had I had this big tall man give me a swab. He's like, put this under your tongue and that's your alcohol test. And I was like, okay, put it on my tongue, done. He goes, okay, follow the yellow line, and then that's where you can go pee in a cup. And I'm like, oh, the yellow line because it's pee? That's hilarious in my mind. Well, I'm not going to say anything because this man has already heard all the jokes. I don't need to diffuse this situation with humor. I just need to exit it as fast as possible. Pee in the cup, give it to him, it's over. And then he says, we're going to give you a hair test. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I had to do a hair test. Well, I did. I just didn't, remember at this time. And I thought it was just, pluck one from your top of your head. Dunzo. No, it is 120 hairs. 120 hairs.
120
That's a lot of hairs.
Doll hairs.
So I was like, where do you get the hair from? And he's like, we can cut off the top of your head. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You're not a barber. You handle pee in cups. And he's like, we can do your arms. And I was like, that feels weird. We can do your legs. I'm like, that's probably smarter. But then he was like, do you have any place you want to do? And I just said armpits. Without any, I don't know why. And he's like, we can do that. Take off your shirt. I take off my shirt. The razor blade is like a comb with like a blade at the end of it. It's very interesting. And he shaved my armpit. And so he was very gentle. I'm very ticklish, so I was trying hard not to laugh the entire time. And he was just, going through it very just still face, slowly doing it. Finishes up with the armpit, looks at me and says, we need to do the other one. You don't have enough hair in your armpit. And I'm like, okay. So he shaved my other armpit, which I feel like is better than having one non-shaved, one in-shaved. And,
I would agree, I guess.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I feel itchy all the time. I feel gross. I don't like how I feel. But 120 hairs? No one tells you that part.
Yeah, that's weird. I've never had a hair follicle test, but I didn't know that they needed that much. So.
I know. It sounds like they just need one.
I mean,
it sounds like
what if they fuck up 120 times?
At that point, I feel like I gotta get a new hair person. I don't know, man. It was interesting.
the real question I have to this is, do you now hard commit to shaving your armpits?
I am so much faster as an individual. Like, I'm more aerodynamic. I fought like 3 men before this like recording, and I won every single fight.
It's pretty hot, dude.
I was like E Honda, like. No, I'm never doing this again. I don't know. I don't like this. This is my first time shaving the armpits, and I feel like it was kind of forced upon me, even though I said it myself.
Yeah, it is a weird thing. Like, I don't know. Props to everyone who shaves their armpits, because that sounds like it would be itchy as fuck. Like, really, really itchy. Because your skin's rubbing against itself constantly because your arms are closed, presumably, while you're walking, while you're doing everyday things. So it's not like shaving your arm where it's like slightly itchy, but yeah.
I no longer T-pose for dominance, but just for comfort. Like, it's not. There's no winning for me anymore. I could have done legs. Legs would have been easy, you know?
I think it was a bad choice. I think you made a poor choice in retrospect, but it was at least it's a good story, right?
It's a good story, and that's kind of all I live my life for nowadays. I remember when I was there was definitely I won't say who it is, but like a male figure in my life who was definitely a bit, you know, I remember I wore a pink shirt and he was like, oh, wearing pink's kind of weird. And I was like, okay. And then later I found out he would shave his legs all throughout like high school and like his college years. And I was like, why did you do that? He goes, I don't understand what's wrong with shaving your legs. Like, if that's what I want to do with my body, that's what I want to do. I'm like, but I wore pink the other day. Like, just like super contradictory. Eventually he kind of was like, yeah, I've grown up, you know. I'm like, okay, good for you.
He grew up in between those two moments, you know.
Yeah,
that's when he grew up. Retroactively, he was like, "Oh yeah, I grew up, but I reserve the right to not be grown up for that particular moment."
America.
Yeah, shout out to Texas.
Oh my gosh! So, don't have any other silly story this week, or are we gonna dive right into this grave?
No, let's talk about Andres and his hair.
It's nice.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
I was literally just about to say I fucking hate being hairy. I
have one chest hair. I'm not kidding. I have
like
hardly have 5
any
each nipple
hair.
and 1 chest hair.
I hardly have any like chest hair proper, but like I have stomach hair, I have leg hair, I have arm hair. I have to shave like every 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, do you really?
I would shave. Yeah, I mean, to stay clean shaven, like I need to shave every like 2 or 3 days.
I was trying to stash it up for a while, but like I have to wear a mask for work now, and it just like I feel it like perspire and like it's just gross. I don't like it. I feel uncomfortable.
That's what killed my mustache.
And you look good in a stash.
It was too itchy.
We've never seen Manny with just a stash. Can we see that soon?
I've shown it a couple times, but yes, you can see it soon. I think the way I got around the mask thing is I started wearing masks that are cloth based, like just cloth, and like it absorbs a lot of the moisture.
That's true.
Like that's what I've been doing. But like good quality masks, those suck. Like when I have to wear like a good mask, it's sort of
for real protection. I'm uncomfortable.
yeah. Yes, exactly.
With me, it wasn't so much the perspiration. I think I've just gotten used to like my general like mouth area feeling wet all the time.
Oh,
from being in a mask.
I don't like that sentence.
We are in dangerous territory now.
The issue with me was the way that like the cloth or whatever would push the facial hair into my skin, and it would just it would just be itchy all day, and it's like I don't want to deal with this anymore. So
when I don't like shave, and I just get like with the trimmer, I always get like, because I use the paper ones that they have at work. They ask you, it gets caught, and like I'll be like just moving, and it'll feel like it's just ripping out hairs of my face, and I'm just like so annoyed. And then my armpit gets all itchy because it's growing. Puberty has been really hard for me these past days.
Yeah, it's okay.
I can't wait till my voice drops.
I can't wait to. Yeah, I feel like I have a really low voice. I was thinking about it, and when I hear myself talk, my voice is not. I mean, I know the reason for this, but I hate hearing my voice outside of my head, like when I'm not talking physically.
Yes.
And for some reason, it sounds much higher than it does in my head. So it's like every time I hear myself, I sort of feel like I took like 5 years off of my life, or I step back in time 5 years, basically. Like my voice
every
is
time
a
I
little
hear
bit
myself.
Higher.
I want to beat me up and take my milk money. Like I sound like I feel like such a dweeb when I hear my own voice. If that makes sense.
Aww.
Like I don't expect it. I think I sound cooler than I actually sound. The content is nice. I agree to myself, but I think the method of delivery sucks.
I used to think that about my voice until. Like, I've obviously gotten over it because if you didn't know, I'm the one that edits this podcast, so I need to listen to my voice. Even though I only... Yeah. I've done all the fucking, so like... All, like... I've done all fucking... damn near... 9 hours of the podcast available right now, so
we have 4 episodes. I am so against like doing the editing for like I'm trying to just get the logistics done for mine started, and I have a guy already who's like, I'll do some editing for you. I'm like, oh thank God, like I don't want to do this.
Congratulations.
It feels great.
You've circumvented.
He's like, you don't need to pay me.
Hurdle.
I'm like, oh okay.
Oh my God, that guy is gonna kill you in your sleep.
Paying him. If I do it, I'm totally gonna pay him. There's no way.
He is playing himself.
Yeah, that's a dangerous line to walk. Unpaid labor.
One of those things is like he wants to be nice, and is like trying to be kind and like, oh, I'll do you this favor of editing. It's like, no sir, like that's not how this is gonna work.
I was once offered to edit a podcast for I'll Buy You Food, and I edited 1 episode and did not edit a second.
Yeah, that's fair. And then if the content isn't particularly to your fancy, you're just like, God, like here we go.
Well, at least it's us.
We like it, you know.
It also just wasn't my podcast, so there's a bunch of like decisions that needed to be made that just weren't made. So it was like, all right, Jorge, I still have your files on my computer. So.
And everyone I've talked to about the podcast has mentioned they're like, oh, I remember when I tried to do one, and I was like, man, I don't want to be. We did it. Like, yeah, you felt good to finally release.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot.
Me who did the least amount of work.
Yeah, let me rephrase this. In terms of content, we have all provided a lot. In terms of work, Andres has provided a lot. There we go. We will change that. We will change that. We will change that. You're gonna hear some episodes and you're gonna be like, wow, those sound way shittier. Those are gonna be the episodes I edited.
And then you're gonna hear some that sound way, way shittier, and those are the episodes I edited. And it'll go full circle, and then the worst ones will then be Andres as we all progress and learn our skill. Like it's we're all making fun of each other or something.
Yeah.
Should we talk about this depressing movie?
Yeah, let's get into it. So, how we doing? Are we okay?
Oh, yeah, man.
How
There's some scenes, particularly for me, that hit me hard. Like, I didn't cry during this movie. I was engaged throughout the entire movie. I was under the misinterpretation that I would see a nuclear bomb just disseminate a person. I definitely thought this was that movie. I think I mixed it up with another movie in my head because I have a note where I'm like, man, knowing that these children are gonna get eviscerated is really making this hard to watch. And then I got to the ending and the credits, and I'm like, is there an after credit scene where these kids just get cellularly destructed? And I was like, I guess it was the wrong movie. I could have enjoyed this a little bit more.
Well, they do get eviscerated, but by humanity,
yes,
and some fire. But yeah,
that was kind of the weird part to me, like that it didn't even address the bomb in the slightest. Like,
I legit thought this was the one where like there's that. I have this particular like anime like clip in my head where the person is like facing the light and their arms are up and they just like are gone. And I don't know what that's from. I thought it was this movie.
Dragon Ball Z?
Probably just Dragon Ball. Probably just Frieza.
I mean, like, those scenes do happen a lot. It's a very dramatic scene to have like light wash over someone while they're like struggling, right? But I
for some reason was just like, that's why I didn't want to watch Grave of the Fireflies, because I didn't want to see this like. And like in the beginning, you do see the corpses. No, maybe
that happens in Akira.
It happens in everything is the problem.
But it's like more damn near 1-to-1 with what you're saying.
Yes, it's probably Akira. I don't know.
Is it like that? It's like a very skeletal person.
Maybe not.
Whatever. Let's move on. It'd be like me trying to be
Skeletor.
like, I'm looking for an anime with a spunky female protagonist. Like, okay, cool.
With colored
your pick,
hair.
Buddy. Yes, with hair that is not natural to any human at all. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! What I'm talking about.
Yeah, Andres, how did you? How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's really bizarre, the context in which I'm watching this movie, which is probably going to really affect my opinion. But I did not cry. I did not cry. I have noted I'm closer to vomiting than crying, really.
Wow.
Damn. That's a good phrase.
Yeah. But just for context, I've been kind of unintentionally deep in the anime this week for some reason. I rewatched, which is kind of perfect for this, but also not, because I will try my best not to bring up this movie, but it's In This Corner of the World, which is basically the exact same time frame of Grave of the Fireflies. It's World War II, but I mean, I can talk about it maybe a little bit later, but In This Corner of the World.
In This Corner of the World.
Yeah.
It's basically like the opposite side of the coin for Grave of the Fireflies, whereas these children obviously don't have a support system. Like the entire movie of In This Corner of the World is like
a little cape too. Oh, it's so cute.
In This Corner of the World is basically just like a family trying to get through the war. So it's a different perspective.
Much different perspective.
Yeah. Although there is a bit of like strangeness and whatnot, because the main character is married into the family, so she doesn't know like how she's being perceived and whatnot. But there's like a lot of just vague overlaps with mainly the air raids and stuff like that. Like I think in both movies they say, or they both imply like, God, I'm so fucking tired of these air raid alarms. Like,
it is funny how some tragedies and like things like that, which are like definitely life-defying moments, if they just kind of keep happening, they define your life less as a singular moment, but more of the span of time. And in that span of time, you have to live your life. So you're kind of just like, yeah, like there was at least 30 air raids, and God, dude, after 4, you don't give a shit. Like, you go to the shelter, you bring your chair, you have a book, like those things. That's real. That's a part of life.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use real tragedies in my own life, so I used this one.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about too a little bit. Go for it.
But also, just to continue on the personal context part for me, the day before watching it, I also finished one of my favorite anime, or rewatching one of my favorite anime, Penguin Drum, Mawaru Penguin Drum, if you want the, and I was like seconds away from sobbing while watching the last episode.
Nowhere near close to vomiting during the last episode.
No. So I don't know if the reason why I didn't cry is because I used all my tears on that. But this movie made me sad, but not in the way that would make me cry, I suppose.
I don't know if it's because this movie is so, like, A Silent Voice we watched, and I was upset and, like, sad because it felt like things could be, I don't know, avoided isn't the right word, but more like they aren't as damning as just the actual facts of a nation being bombed and people suffering because of it. Like, that is so much more existential that I'm not, like, upset and angry in the way of, like how can this happen, but more just, like, accepting of, like, this has happened. Maybe that's what it was for me with the difference between Silent Voice and this one, which are the two movies we've watched on this one. And Bo Burnham, which I don't feel like crying during that movie at all. So it's fine. But, like, yeah, I don't know. I agree with 100. I was sad. I definitely felt, and again, I had a little sibling who did pass away. It is this movie. There's moments where I am, like, impacted and, like, I feel like this is God pointing a finger and laughing at me for making me watch this movie. And then it's not God, it's Manny. Like, it's just like, this sucks. So there's, I don't know, there's parts where it's like, fuck, like, this movie hits you. But I never felt like crying. I don't know. I'm not really a crier to begin with, I guess. So maybe that's fair. But Andres is a crier, to be sure.
Yeah. I mean, the really interesting thing about this movie...
I say it with only love, Andres. I say it with only love.
The interesting thing about this movie, and I think... Well, so for me, like, my first impression going back into this was... I was actually as worried as maybe both of you were to some extent. Or, like, the expectations were probably higher than the actual result for me. So it's like my second or third time watching it all the way through. And I, like, going in, I was like, God, here we go again. Like, let's take it in one more time. But I think the impact for me was taken away, and I didn't have as much of an emotional or visceral experience with it, only because I knew what was going to happen. I remembered every scene. And so, like, the impact of, Setsuko passing away, right? Like, that, I saw that coming from, like, miles away. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm already preparing myself for it. And emotionally, I was just reacclimating to it. But, yeah, I didn't really cry either. I guess if we're doing the cry metric. I teared up at the very last scene, but only because I love the symbolism and, like, the shot itself. It wasn't really for reference, it's the scene where they're overlooking like modern day Kobe. And so, like, that scene is, like, one of my favorite, just the imagery is, like, one of my favorite pieces of anime imagery ever. But that's that's the only time in which I felt, like, emotionally impacted. Everything else was it was dread filled, but it wasn't, like, too overbearing for me.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So you've seen it 2 to 3 times. I had known about things. I knew the ending. I knew it's sad, but that's about all I knew. I didn't. To me, I thought it was gonna be like there's a manga I read called like Dragon Head, where like the disaster happens immediately, and now we're just like watching the after it. That's how That's how I expected the movie to go. Like I thought they were gonna be watching the bombs drop, nuclear style, and that felt terrible to say, and then just seeing these people trying to live through like radiation killing them. That's how my brain thought this movie was gonna go. If you haven't seen this movie, audience, and you're still listening, I don't know what to tell you. It's gonna get worse. Andres, how much did you know? Was this your first time watching it? That was my question.
Oh yes, it was absolutely my first time watching it. Yeah, I mean, literally, the reason why we came off hot with whether or not we cried is because it's known as like one of the saddest movies, at least if not in all of movies, like at least in anime circle.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all I really knew was that it was sad and kind of a tragic tale. I saw my mom decided to watch this movie by herself on Christmas Day or something like that. And in watching it, I realized that the point I came to see, like, what she was doing was the point where he finds his dead mother. It is just like... So seeing that in context is just like, oh my god, like, why would you... This was unfortunate timing. Like,
yeah, real Christmas feels.
But, yeah, I mean, I was actually under the same impression as you, Alexi. Like, I thought it was going to have to deal more with, like, people having to deal with, like, radiation fallout and stuff like that. Like I like having seen that other movie at This Corner of the World, I knew, or like seeing the initial start was like, okay, I know what this is about, like straight off. But yeah.
And I have another question because I'm full of them.
Sure.
How the fuck are we gonna fucking advertise this episode?
Oh, it's
How
good.
do we go on social media and be like, do you want to get your world rocked today?
People love A Grave of the Fireflies.
Yes,
it's like one of the highest rated movies, like on any movie ranking website. Like,
stop thinking
it's an important movie.
It is an important. I think I did talk about that with other people, that this movie is important. I guess.
And
I don't know how to.
And I'm sure there.
With my
I'm sure
energy,
there are people that like are just kind of interested to see how we react to it.
That's true.
I mean, the really interesting thing about the movie is, amongst the other fucking things I say with that prepositional phrase there, is that it's very historically important. Not from like a like both from an anime film perspective, but also from like, you know, a Japanese nationalist perspective, from like all of these other vantage points. So we can market it as like, you ready to learn about the history of World War II? We're not going to do that, but I'm just saying.
No, we could. That's it. That's my only idea. Oh my gosh.
This is a good lead in to some of the background info. So
please.
So yeah, the director, Isao Takahata, is one of the co-founders of Studio Ghibli, along with like Hayao Miyazaki, Toshio Suzuki, and Yasuyoshi Tokuma, and that was like founded in 1985, right? So
Ghibli or Ghibli?
This is a contested point.
Okay, I don't know.
Ghibli or Ghibli is taken from Italian, and in Italian it's Ghibli.
Ghibli.
But if you treat it from the Japanese perspective of like enunciation, or maybe it's one of the two, but the Japanese and the Italian conflict. I'm realizing that I'm pretty sure there's gi in there's gi in Japanese. Is there ge in Japanese, like GHI? I don't think so. Does anyone know Japanese here?
Yeah.
I thought you would answer this question for.
Yeah, I know, which I'm thinking about it. So the Japanese and Italian conflict. But I used to go ge because it was more in line with like Japanese pronunciation, but I don't really know. So I go back and forth. It doesn't really matter.
I'm sorry I laughed at I used to go ge. Just
yeah.
I mean, the Japanese word for bread is just pan, so like it would make sense to just use the Italian pronunciation since they got like some words from Portuguese.
When it's Setsuko, that's her name, right? I'm so bad at the names.
Yeah, Setsuko.
She says ice cream, and it's just so cute. Like, goddamn, like.
Yeah, that's like her talking is like the saving grace of cute for this entire film.
Her holding the chopsticks, she holds them like so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I think that like her cuteness is really the thing that like So I'll get into this, but.
Yeah,
this
sorry.
Film,
I'm sorry. I'll shut up for a minute.
No. This film sort of has like a relationship where it's like sort of it's treated as an anti-war film by like scholars or whatever, but Takahata actually tried to push this film and market this film as a family film that is about a brother and sister relationship. So it's actually like tied in with this idea that like the characters and Setsuko in particular is meant to be like very amiable and relatable and this sort of thing. And so I think her cuteness is the thing that helps us feel more near the end where she does not make it.
Seeing your face and trying to figure out how you're gonna say is always probably the best part about these things where it's like where she got like you know?
Yeah, that's just my verbal cadence. Yeah, so Takahata, so this was his first directorial film for Ghibli.
Damn.
And I'll hit some of the other ones. So I'm a huge like Studio Ghibli fan. And I've seen over half of every film that Ghibli has put out, and Miyazaki. I've seen guess
Miyazaki
that's like
released films not under the studio?
Yeah, so like Studio Ghibli is interesting in that like all of the original founders were already working in animation.
That's true.
In animation before. So Miyazaki, Nazca and the Valley of the Wind was not a Ghibli film, but it had a lot of the people who ended up going to Ghibli on it.
That's a cool movie.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites actually.
Gainax trigger type deal.
She's one of the most perfect protagonists ever. She just does everything she does is awesome in the way of like, it's hilarious. Where it's just like she's gonna solve this problem right now, and then she does.
She fits the archetype pretty well, like the archetype of like the leading female badass heroine really, really well. But so other films that Takahata worked on was Only Yesterday, which is I should say Grave of the Fireflies was released in 1988. Only Yesterday was released in 1991, and it's about it's a young adult who is reflecting on her life as she revisits a place she used to visit, like a small island or something, or like the countryside during summer vacation, and her grandma lives there, and so that's that vibe.
Sounds rough already.
Pompoko, which is a 1994 film that involves tanuki and like magical realism and Japanese culture and has like an environmental spin, which is actually my favorite Ghibli film. Then there's My Neighbors the Yamadas, which is 1999, which has it is at its core a family film that just is. It's very beautifully animated. It's all like very specially hand drawn, sort of like watercolor pastel type colors. It's pretty gorgeous. Yeah.
What's it called?
My Neighbors the Yamadas. And the really nice thing about that film, since I'm giving a little bit of a hit for each film, is it's really about highlighting a family, both their strong side and their weak side. So like they have their problems, but they're also really loving, and it's a very human oriented anime film. And then the last one that Takahata did before he passed away, which was The Tale of Princess Kaguya, which is 2013.
So between Yamadas and Kaguya, there was no movies?
Not from Takahata as a director and writer. He wrote on all of these films.
Okay.
And he directed all of these films. Yeah.
The Kaguya one is the one that's like super. It looks like really super hand drawn, right? Like kind of traditional Japanese style.
Yeah, it has like a. It has a.
Sorry,
it's called.
I'm looking these up.
Yeah, no, go for it. It's called The Tale of the Princess Kaguya.
I just looked up Kaguya and I got a lot of different things.
It's a pretty famous
Oh wow!
Japanese folklore story.
This is so pretty.
Yeah, it has like almost a calligraphy feel to it. Like, it's very it's also very pretty.
I didn't realize that came out in 2013.
Yeah, I know, me either. We were like graduating high school and it dropped.
Damn.
Yeah, it's so if you know anything about Ghibli, it's always like fantastical. There's like a lot of focus on like kid-friendly movies. For example, My Neighbor Totoro, right, is sort of about like at the heart of it, it's about this magical creature that sort of helps these kids deal with a particular time of their life by being fantastical and amazing. And
like Cat in the Hat.
It's basically Cat in the Hat, yeah.
Oh my God! With Mike Myers, phenomenal film.
I'm glad I haven't seen that film.
Really? It's
I hear it's
honestly
creepy.
not that bad. It's
I hear it's
freaking
creepy.
funny in my opinion. There's parts that made me laugh. I still think about it to this day. Oh, but it's creepy. That is still correct.
Okay. Well, I'll have to watch it. We'll do a side-by-side comparison. We'll do Cat in the Hat.
Oh, let's do that.
That's a wild idea. We should. I'm taking it down in my mental. Write it down. But yeah, so if you know anything about Ghibli, right, and there are like a whole bunch of other Ghibli movies I didn't talk about. Takahata here, all of the movies he directed and wrote on, they have such a personal, like, humanist twist to them. They're all very oriented around like people, and I think I read somewhere that Takahata is the only reason Miyazaki created films that like spoke to the human nature of people. Otherwise, he would be basically making comic book movies. Is basically what I read, and that's from a source I think within Ghibli. So I think that there's a little bit of cred there, but I also, in doing the research for this episode, I just realized that like most of my favorite films are by Takahata from the Ghibli franchise, so it's pretty nice. But I have a fun story about the origins of Grave of the Fireflies for Studio Ghibli.
I feel like that's a contradiction what you just said, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, well, I get maybe it's a contradiction. So a little fun fact about Grave of the Fireflies is that it had its Japanese theatrical release as a double feature with My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh
and they were
wow.
That is a fun fact. Fun for me to learn about. Terrible for those people watching it.
Yeah, it's sort of crazy. As I was reading, they said that it was marketed as a double feature family film, where you would first see Totoro, and then you would go to Grave of the Fireflies. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
there's a terrible joke I'm not gonna make about this because that rocks my world.
The apparently they lost so much. Apparently that the theatrical release did so poorly for both Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies that it took selling Totoro merch to recoup both films' costs.
Well, where was the Grave of the Firefly merch?
Do you want like a fruit drop plushie, like the tin can plushie?
I was thinking like the tin can and like
and you can open
like bullshit.
You can open the tin can replica and then little pieces of ash fall out.
Oh God, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of money probably for people now. People would buy that.
Oh hell yeah,
1,000%.
Yeah. And so
that's wild.
It is pretty wild. Like the origins.
Do you think they would have done better if they just set them as like separate movies?
I don't think the Fireflies would have done better, but Totoro, I imagine.
Yeah, that's what I imagine too. I think Totoro would have had like a phenomenal release, and then no one would have seen Grave of the Fireflies. So, yeah.
Do you think that's why they did it? They knew no one. they like looked at their two creations and were like, "Oh fuck!" Like we got to do something about this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about this, again, there's my catchphrase. The interesting thing about this, is that get in the zone. So
this
the
who listens to this shit?
Yeah. So the story of Grave of the Fireflies was written by an author who was like, I don't remember when they were born, but they were really active during the 1950s, like right after World War II. And their name is Akiyuki Nosaka. And get this, Grave of the Fireflies is a semi-autobiographical short story.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Guess which parts are the autobiographical parts?
Is she the aunt?
Every human character is basically related to the author.
Wow. All of it. Guess which autobiographical parts? Everything. Oh my God.
I know. I was looking into it, and the authors, both of the author's sisters, died from malnutrition during World War II at different points. Yeah, it was rough. It was. I was reading more about it, and basically, so Akiyuki, this short story, which was written in 1967, was his way of saying sorry to his sisters, basically.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
It's
Jesus Christ.
We're only going deeper, fellas.
I might cry just during this recording instead of the movie.
I don't know.
Oh God.
the funny thing is that like artists do that all the time, though. It's just really tragic when it's like a really terrible thing. You know?
Yeah, I know artists do this all the time, but still, Manny, this is a bit different.
Yeah. World War II was a little different, you know?
Yeah. Tagline for the podcast.
Yeah.
I failed my need to make the joke of World War II built different.
That's tragic.
Oh, I apologize.
You should see yourself out into the recording booth so we can continue doing this. Thanks.
We can just cut this out. We can just cut this whole part. We can cut this whole episode out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
what
that's
backstory do we have?
well, that's like the full background that I felt was like really relevant. Takahata was really like this being his first film. I think it's like it says a lot to everyone's skill. They adapted the short story for the publisher while the author was still alive. So it was the author was like starkly against having an adaptation of the short story, and a couple of people came forward with like live action adaptations and stuff like that. But
was one released? As soon as I was reading up on it before we started recording, and you said you were going to talk about it. So like, is there a live action version of this?
There is a live action version, but it's.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I keep peeking on just for later recording, but this is just hurting my heart.
Yeah, I haven't seen the live action, but it was released way later. It was like 2008 or something. There was like a live action adaptation of it. But the first like film or like media adaptation of it that wasn't in its original short story form was Grave of the Fireflies, the movie we're talking about today.
Okay.
And the reason the author gave the go ahead is particularly because one, it was animated, so there's like a lot of flexibility. And two, the rice paddy fields were very, very accurate. That's what he said. Which I think speaks to like Ghibli's excellence in like nature scene design is like really top tier, you know. And so the bombings were autobiographical as well. So they were based off of the oh god, I have this somewhere. The Okayama bombings that happened during World War II. And that was another thing the author looked for. It was like, in order for this to go really well, there needed to be that same level of like war dread that was in the opening scene, or the second scene, which is, you know, the first bombings. So yeah, that's all the backstory. It doesn't make me happy sharing the backstory. It's actually it actually makes the movie a lot sadder, I think.
It does make it a lot sadder. Can we take a break real quick?
6.5 hours later.
I didn't even really eat breakfast, so I'm real hungry. But with the taco man at my cousin's house later today, so I'm really excited to eat that. But we're going at 4.
Yeah, you know, this is let's keep this section in because this is very relevant.
The taco man?
No, not taco. Fuck the taco man.
Well, that's not very nice. He just wants to do his work.
Taco man can get it both ways.
Wow. I'll call him when I see him today. If his food sucks, if you're gone, I don't think I go to more parties like this than you guys. I've gone to where the taco man makes terrible food. Like it's we all sat down, we were all hungry, we took a bite, and I looked at my aunts and my uncles, and they were like shaking their heads no. And I was like, this sucks. And they're like, this sucks. I've never been more heartbroken. Okay, I'll shut up now. Go ahead, Manny.
No, I was saying that this is so topically relevant because as I was watching Grave of the Fireflies, I felt so disgusting for eating. Uh, and like,
God, you're eating while watching this.
yeah, I was. I was having breakfast, and
You
I
started
think
your
that-
day with Grave of the Fireflies?
yeah. The funny, I mean, well, so as I was eating and watching, I realized that this movie is like very much about like sort of like hierarchy of needs, but also in particular food. Like there's so much food and hunger related things in this movie. And that's why I felt weird about it. Cause I was like, oh, I'm eating like spaghetti and meatballs while these youngins are chewing on marbles.
Eating spaghetti and meatballs for breakfast. Oh,
God, dude.
all these kids are eating marbles.
Spaghetti meatballs does sound phenomenal right now, but not while I'm watching people die and for breakfast.
Yeah, we'll ignore the breakfast part of that comment.
No. My God.
I think I understand the context in which you'd be eating that for breakfast, but
I
you wanna
watched
take
it
a guess?
alone. Go ahead, let's hear it.
it was leftovers and you didn't want to
Oh,
make
yeah.
anything.
Hell yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what I did.
It would be way more insane if Manny started his day cooking pasta and eating up fake meatballs. If that was the answer, I wouldn't be able to do the podcast anymore. I'd be so concerned at who Manny is as a human being.
It would be a terrible decision for breakfast. But then again, vegans barely have options unless they're spending money to get that just egg, that Beyond sausage, that primo fake food, as my mom would call it. Yeah.
Oh my God. Manny, how do you want to lead this discussion for us? Because I definitely have things I want to talk about.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I'm thinking we can just like hit some big points about this. Not even scenes, but just like anything that like struck you or like things you found really interesting. Because, like for me, it really did end up being about food, in a weird way. Like my first watch, I did not think about that at all. I was like thinking about the relationship.
Really?
I was thinking about war.
Mm-hmm.
But then this time around, I was like, oh, like the main problem that they're facing is malnutrition and like shelter, water, like really basic necessities. And that's like where my mind drifted to most of the time. So it was really weird for me. It became a little bit about food, but I'm wondering thematically what like struck you both.
I think I definitely picked up on the food thing like right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like that definitely seemed to be the just general driver of everything happening in the movie. At least after they move or have to leave their house because it gets burnt down. What the main thing I was picking up on was maybe it's not intentional, but it seemed to be a very anti-nationalism movie. Because I mean that's the entire reason or like a very large reason why the aunt is so opposed to them staying is because they're not Seta is not doing his civic duty in helping out with the wartime efforts.
I know no one else could see as much too, but Andres just pulled out his like notebook, and it was so seamless and cool looking. That was rad. You were just like the aunt, like that was awesome.
It was pretty effective. That's our prop for today.
I really did want to talk about the aunt because she to me is a character and at the beginning I do identify with her a little bit, being like, hey, you do need to pull some weight here. like you are an older boy, like you can help. But then kind of as it goes on, obviously she just kind of continues to like express anger to them, and even the other family notices like you're yelling at them, like, and it's contrast to I'm assuming it was their neighbor or something who wanted to help the kid and the son, the kids, and she was like, do you remember what I'm talking about in the very beginning? There's the woman who's like, how can I help you? And like she goes get them rations. Yes. She's like super supportive, and I was very much noticing the collectivistic culture as the big theme here. As like in the beginning, when you finally see the brother's body and he's like just dying, which when you go back you realize it's like him in present time or whatever, and them just being like, so like, look how gross these people are who can't help themselves or our beautiful country. Like, just like, once you are useless, it kind of felt like you don't deserve anything or any help. It kind of it hurt me. And then seeing the other woman being like, your mom died, how do I help you? Like, what can I do? You guys need food, let me go get food. Like, her like seeing them, acknowledging it, saying she wants to help, and then coming up with her own solution is like the most forward thinking person there. And then the mom's like, why aren't you helping out? And then the aunt, why aren't you helping out? And then she gets upset when they're like, okay, like, you don't want us here, we're gonna cook our own food. Okay, like, you don't want us here, we're gonna leave. And like her like not really knowing how to feel about it, right? And then the dad, they find the kids later, and like he drops I think the little girl drops potatoes, and like the dad finds it, and then the son just like picks up the potato and just keeps walking, doesn't acknowledge him. And then later on they meet again, and he's like, you're just freaking weird, kid, like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, his mom died and he has to raise his sister alone, and he's a child. You have all talked about how amazing the Navy is, and you just told him like all of his world is crashing around him, and like we're just blaming him for not being able to handle it, even though he's a child, which is just like, you know, again, like, I've experienced that in my life, and I think a lot of us have, where like there's moments when you're a kid and like, oh, there is reality, and then people are like, why aren't you dealing with the reality? I've dealt with it all my life, you should figure it out by now. Like, no sympathy for these children. So that was the big theme I got. Like, there's definitely groups that people believe everyone should be a part of, and if you're not recognize it. It's not like they weren't sad when the kids died. They rooted through their bodies, threw away their stuff, and then we're like, they're gonna die. You can tell they're gonna die because of the light leaves their eyes. Like, they were just animals to them. That was my main theme of just like, these people were discarded, it felt like.
Yeah, that opening. Oh, go ahead.
I took that. It works the way you say it, but when I saw it, I definitely took it more as like, yeah, this happened, or this happens, like,
yeah, exactly.
So we're used to it. Like,
as I was mentioning earlier, like, yeah, the air raids were important, and then after the fourth one, it's like, doesn't matter. So yeah, you find a dead body of a kid. Yeah, cool. You're gonna keep finding them, and our job is to get them out the subway. Like, it's, I guess, yeah, I get it. They're used to it, but like, it feels like you never should be, right? Like, that's the sad part, and that's unfair to say. Of like, I don't know, I've had, to do it a little more personal story, I remember I had a family member pass away, and we have a rosary for 7 days, like the whole family comes and prays. First 3 days, like a small part of the family showed up, and then people came back, and on the fourth day, you know, it's day 3 of being sad. Like, you're talking, and like, oh, remember we were talking about this yesterday? Like, oh, like, this, and like, you have conversation, like, you're healing. And then a new family member showed up, and they were like, why aren't you all sad? Like, what's going on? And it's like, well, we've healed in our own ways, and we've done this. So, like, it's kind of unfair for you to demand that we go through everything you're going through at the same time. And so that's kind of the same thing. This is hard for me to watch because it's my first time, but this is them going through it a dozen times. And it's sad. It's as always, it's sad.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the opening scene is that it's also post-surrender. So like, it highlights a little bit of like, you know, there was not an immediate recoup there's like all this fallout, and all of the people there are like, they look like kids. They look like really young, uh, and they're all like collapsing and or dying in the subway, which is pretty intense to think about. Like even after surrender, uh, there's still going to be a long line of repercussions that happen.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. There's also like the humanist element I picked up on a lot, and like this like human nature and how things are just, when things get tough, people like go into conservation mode, and that, I think that, you know, referencing what I was saying earlier about Takahata really trying to make this like a story about a brother and a sister. One, I think it honors the author's intention because it was sort of like, you know, meant to reconcile that. But two, I also think it, all of these things in this movie that we're picking up on right now help push it in that direction, because it could just be about war. It could be about like, you know, people literally dying, in like that sort of war space. But at the end of the day, the reason war is scary, or at least like the reason I feel war is scary, is because it has to do with people like suddenly having their whole lives changed and or losing things that they need. So I thought that this movie really like captured that well. I also think it's weird that Takahata was like very much like, this is not an anti-war film. Like not only did he like say it's not, it's about, you know, a brother sister bond, but also that it's not anti-war.
Wow.
And I was, even though he was starkly anti-war, he said that this film is not meant to be that. So I was like, yeah.
I think adding context really did add to my perspective of this movie, because I'll be honest, when I finished it, I was kind of just like, what am I supposed to get out of watching this? Because I think as a family movie and your first exposure to something like this, it would be super like mega impactful. But as a 26-year-old who has read like Night and Forgotten Fire and all these books about genocide and like people recounting their stories, it's like, yeah, I mean, unfortunately this happens in human society and it's awful, and there's many stories about it, so of course it's gonna turn out like this. Like, yeah, I mean, I was, so after watching it, it was just kind of like, well, as in the context that I know, what am I supposed to get out of this? Like, war is bad, people are shitty, and when push comes to shove, they will probably worry about their own like problems rather than focusing on their who's the aunt was the father's sister?
Yes, because she mentioned there's family on the mother's side in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, who's like your brother's kids? Like, why should you worry about them when you can hardly focus on helping your own immediate family?
Yeah.
Like, there's just a lot of things where I feel like, yeah, I kind of unfortunately already knew this. So, like, what conclusion am I supposed to draw? Whereas it being marketed as a family film is just kind of something where a parent or somebody older would be able to be like, hey, here's some harsh realities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I like you need to be able to know about this, and that even with the best of intentions, things just don't work out. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's like a really good point. It also like timing here I think is important because
yeah.
you know Grave of the Fireflies was like 43 years after the end of World War II.
Wow.
The film, and the short story was 22 years after the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So like there was a lot of time for media to develop, and I'm not like a Japanese media historian whatsoever. In fact, I know very little, but I imagine that there was a lot of media made about World War II, at least like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
There's like the whole Gundam series is supposed to be anti-war, even though it has devolved to be giant robot punch. Like, and even he said that he's like, this is supposed to be like, the focus is meant to be more about the anti-war, not the robots. And everyone was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why do you keep making them so cool then? Like, what do you mean? I think I really do agree with Andres where it's kind of like, yeah, we are jaded 26-year-olds and we've heard of this, you know? Sadly.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy saying it. Like, it just kind of hurts. Go ahead, Andres.
I watched it with my roommate and good friend of the podcast, David, and I literally, at one point I told him, like, I really don't need to go to the Museum of Tolerance twice. Like, what? I can't see really the value in continually rewatching this movie. And
I knew
like,
someone who every year in high school did go to the Museum of Tolerance. That was like their one field trip they could go to, and it's just like, dude, what? Like maybe on your second visit you see the exhibit you didn't get to see the first try, but like, oh my gosh.
For context of people outside of California, the Museum of Tolerance is a Holocaust museum.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I guess I don't know. Maybe some people don't like to immerse themselves in this stuff over and over again, and so there's like maybe like years between where they're watching something else. I'm not gonna give any ideas. Kind of want to make it seem like I'm making fun of people for whatever they enjoy, but like maybe it's just like, oh, like I'm gonna watch Grave of the Fireflies and really like think about this because I haven't thought about it in a long time. Wow, I know us three really do like to sometimes read things that are just like very morbid. And I mean, like you were saying, you were watching Penguin Drum and all this other stuff. This week I've been reading Blue Lock, which is a sports manga, and I've been like reading in the bathroom at work and like fist pumping when they score a goal. So like this was like a drastic turnaround, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's right, this part of the world exists too.
Yeah, I think again, like putting it into timeline perspective, we're so far removed from World War II as people. You know,
Yes.
that it's like we think about it with a different mindset. Like I was thinking about when this film came out in '88, there were people who were still alive who lived through all of World War II.
Yes.
The entirety, and probably World War One, and like thinking about it from that perspective, it probably was more visceral and impactful for those people for obvious reasons. And so maybe like, I don't know, maybe someone from like the armed forces in Japan or whatever they're called would like watch this and be like, oh shit, like, you know, they might live with that, assuming PTSD isn't a thing. But, you know, people handle PTSD in their own ways.
We are not doctors on this podcast. I repeat, we are not doctors on the podcast.
We are a doctor-sponsored podcast.
We are not a doctor. I think
9
we're still
out
a
of 10
satanic.
doctors.
Are we still a satanic podcast? Does that count?
We are now a peer-reviewed podcast.
We are a dentist. We're the one dentist that does not recommend using Crestgate toothbrush. See, I combined them, but they're not real, so it's okay.
There you go. That's how we get around copyright. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I was thinking about like time a lot when I was watching this because as I was doing the research and I had all these dates in my head, I was like, this shit probably hit way different, like
Yeah,
in the
sure.
80s. Yeah.
Even the era of the original short story, like that must have been like groundbreaking if it made it outside of Japan at least. Like,
How long ago was the movie made?
It was 1988.
So that's
so
what,
40.
almost 40 years. So we're almost from the event happening, movie being made, and like us watching it almost like exactly.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
I guess it'd be 30, closer to 35 years, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's yeah, that sort of like, I don't know. We're also all very desensitized, even in the anime and manga space, to this. I think that's also important to like recognize that there's so much influence of like war/World War II thematic content in anime and manga, that it has sort of been done to, I wouldn't say done to death, but maybe it has been done quite a lot.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've really seen all that much like direct reference to World War II. I feel like in a lot of the anime I watch, they just kind of dance around it, and like it's kind of up to you to be like, oh, of course they're talking about World War II right now. Like, look at the time. It's it's in the 40s. Like,
One of my favorite manga is Golden Kamui, which eventually we will be reading on this show. They talk about the Japanese-Russo War, Japanese-Russian War. I didn't know that was a fucking thing. I had no idea. It's really historically focused, like, manga, too. They, like, teach you a lot. And I was like, man, there was a whole ass war I didn't know about. Like, that's how bad I am with this stuff. Oh, just what were you saying? I'm sorry for interrupting.
oh, I mean, just in terms of that, like, there's wars all over the world that we have no idea about.
100%.
So
It just hurts when you remember that, you know?
I mean, just going on the line of nationalism, like, I'm sure there's plenty of wars the U.S. has been a part of that they just don't teach us about because we lost and wasted lives to do some stupid political things. Like,
I was when you said we get into war, I was gonna do it da-na-na, da-na-na, and then you said lives lost, and I got sad. But I wanted to say it still. I'm real tired of my own bullshit today.
Warzone.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
if we don't have anything else, we can talk about fucking how if we don't have anything directly to go to, we can talk about how nationalism is fucking garbage.
We can talk about how nationalism is garbage in the context of this.
I have one scene I'm ready to talk about that was the hardest scene for me to watch personally.
Yeah, let's hit all the scenes that people want to talk about. There are a couple for me too. Yeah.
I think this is, we've touched on all the ones I really wanted to bring up. There is I guess I'll ease into it. The part where like you see her and she's taking care of her hair and like her face is so beautifully animated. There's times when she's crying, she looks like an old woman. It's really funny to me. But like when she is sick, her hair is not the same, and like that's always so important in life and like in stories, like in especially animation. Like the hair looks like one solid piece forever, and then something happens and their hair looks drastically different. Like a character with long hair and in the middle of a big fight and the hair's in front of their face, like looks like a completely different person to you. So like seeing her and just being sick like really tore me up right there. This isn't the scene I want to talk about. Like just like these little nuggets of like animation really did sell home, you know, all this just work put into this, it feels like.
Yeah. Super Saiyan, right?
Yeah.
Like you think about that relationship.
Yeah, wow.
We're now a Dragon Ball Z podcast.
Ooh, okay, so Frieza.
Yeah, if all goes according to plan, I'm not gonna be editing this episode, or else I'd cut that shit out.
Dragon Ball Z Super has been very boring to read. I don't care anymore about Goku. He's so bland. He's just a big punching fist. Anyway, back to Grave of the Fireflies. Does anyone have one they want to jump in before I get to the scene that really did fuck me up? Because I think I could use a little buffer.
Well, you started off.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The scene that really did get to me was when he is. Oh God, I'm trying not to cry. He is. He's crying. He's crying and he's like losing it because he can't feed her. She's sick and whatever. And then she walks up to him and is like, "How do I help you? You're sick." Like her offering, like, "There's no more problems for me, brother. Like, we are the only people that have each other. How do I help you?" Made me reflect on a specific memory where I remember I was just like going through something in the middle of the house and like I was crying and then my sister just like stopped playing and like went up to me and did the same thing. Like she grabbed my knee and like looked up at me and like she was nonverbal, she couldn't speak, but like she did the best she could to like communicate with me like something was wrong. And that part was just like fucked up my whole that part I had to just chug through. I couldn't even allow myself to sit in those thoughts again because that to me was like, this movie is about family for sure, and just how these two people, no one wants them, no one really wants them. They get very few ounces of kindness to them. The farmer sells some stuff to them as much as he can. The police officer is like, dude, like the police officer kind of just lets him go scot-free, right? Like he's like, I get it, I get what you're going through, you just got your ass kicked. And like the farmer's like, kick his ass more, and he's just like, what do you want? Like, it's over, it's just you know. So like seeing them just like the girl understanding like we're here, we're together, and it's, you know, it's something I just have always, that gets me. If there's ever, these movies get me specifically when it's like a younger sister and an older brother will fuck up my day.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That's why I said, like, you specifically. In the last episode, I was like, man, this movie is going to be hard for Alexi specifically. So,
yep.
Props to you, buddy.
I didn't cry because I was more so just generally sad, which is weird to say.
Yeah, that scene was really rough for me too. Like being an older sibling, like those types of like thoughts always enter your head at some point. Like it's really hard not to have those thoughts if you have a younger sibling that you care for, or even an older sibling that you care for. Like protection from the outside world, you know, like that element is always, for me, has been really important. So, so yeah, that got me a little bit too. It was a little bit of a rough scene.
I mean, just from the jump, there's some really tough stuff. Like when, like as soon as they show the mom, is just like, oh my god, dude, I don't know if I can do this.
That scene is like so impactful. Like that's the first real, like, I'm not gonna call it like a jump scare, but like because it's so graphic, it's so impactful. You know,
like the kids being homeless and dying is hard, but it's not as graphic as third degree burns all over the body, and like just how they talk about her, like we barely got her to stop and go to sleep, and then how they just discard her afterwards because it's like, again, like you got to keep it going, you got to help everyone, and it's just like, fuck, dude, like this, yeah. I'm glad we didn't have to watch her speak. I was not ready to see her like hoarsely say his name and be like, protect your sister. That's where my mind went, and I was like, I'm guarding myself already. My walls are being put up, and I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, just the way that all the various like skin things that they are
Oof.
able to animate. Like, they're I think I've just kind of grown to understand like certain things about the body. So like blood doesn't affect me or anything, but the one thing that always affects me is seeing like skin conditions. Like those make me sick to my stomach. So seeing that on like all the mom, seeing it on the sister, it was just kind of
So
like, oh
did
my
she
God.
have like an allergy to salt water? I never like, that part kind of I didn't get.
Yeah, I didn't get the full context of the illness, but it looked like a couple of different things happening all at once, and then the malnutrition just like took it up a step.
amplifying.
Yeah, I mean, my impression from that scene specifically was just like, I think there's something else wrong with her. Like, probably just the result of eating unclean food and stuff like that. But, like, the impression I got from the doctor's visit scene was just like, oh, the doctor just either, or A, has enough to deal with like seeing patients, but also B, like is just fully jaded to everything happening and is not really fully paying attention to anything. So he just sees her and says, she needs food, go.
Next.
Like, instead of being like, oh, like this like rash is not just like from malnutrition. I fortunately don't know the symptoms of malnutrition, so I don't know if getting
Catch me not
rashes
Googling that
is a
one.
part of it.
Not doing that, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, definitely like, again, going back to like seeing it over and over again and moving on. The doctor has a line of patients and who are all probably suffering from malnutrition in some way or form. So this is just another name on the list, and it's just like, oh God, like, oh.
Yeah, malnutrition does have, one of the things I caught was that diarrhea is caused by malnutrition, so that's one small thing in favor of malnutrition. But it also looked like there were like either parasites or lice in her hair at one point.
Yeah.
Or that, like,
I thought that was like salt or something. That's what I had no idea. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Because when he squished it, there was like blood.
Oh.
So
I think maybe I didn't catch that part.
yeah, it could have been just blood from her hair and head in general, like
Oof. Man, that
bleed.
makes it so much worse. Jesus.
Yeah, man. Or it could have been lice, but yeah.
I think lice would make sense.
The kids come, right? The kids come, and there's those 4 boys, and they like kind of like look, and then they play around. Why do they run away?
One of the kids says
nothing serious. Like they don't get scared away. They're just playing around with each other. When the kid they just leave.
Well, I think they saw one of them in there, and it was just like, oh shit, a ghost. Like,
that one, and then they go to the beach, and they just find a dead body there, and there's like no. That one to me was really weird. There was just no explanation. There was nothing, and it's just there. They left it out there. Someone put it there, or someone found it, just covered it. I never understood that part.
I think thematically that was there to just highlight how terrible and commonplace like wartime is and dead bodies are. So
yeah, I mean, he literally dies in the fucking subway. Like, they're bound to run into dead bodies just anywhere. I imagine that was the point of that.
Guess.
Yeah.
Oh, probably like another person who's homeless in some way, and yada yada.
And I think just as a larger thing, it was just supposed to be like show him wanting to hide
Her
like the
from
concept of death from
Yeah.
his sister.
Mm-hmm.
The
I
one
can't
part
believe
that
the
did
aunt-
get
Go ahead, Andres.
the one part that did get to me was when he found out that she knew their mom was
exactly the same
dead.
thing. I can't believe the aunt just told her.
Yeah, I can't believe that happened either.
Manny.
Sorry, my
Manny going, yeah, I'm serious, that was fucked up. Like, you're just really true
My,
to form.
some like program just opened up on my computer. I'm being hacked. It just said Google.app is opening. And I was like, back the fuck up, Google.
Jesus. Yeah, that was, I don't know. The aunt just made a bunch of, like, crazy swings, in my opinion. Like, she was doing things and she was trying to take care of her own, and I get it. But, like, I feel like she did that to spite the brother. Maybe?
I didn't pick that up entirely, but I did pick up I think the transition for me, like where the transition happened, was when she found out the mom was dead, which is like pretty early on, but she's like, okay, I have to take care of these kids now. And that plus like nationalistic and collectivist ideals formed the basis for her like hatred, and it eventually developed over time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I read that. But yeah, the aunt was really hard to deal with.
I'm glad when the kids decide to leave, there isn't a scene of her like you can see she's like, like I should do, like she kind of isn't. I'm glad there wasn't like a to make her become a villain or whatever, you know, like now that you've said it's autobiographical. And it's more real that a person is, like, not happy that this is happening. Like, this is what she wanted, technically. But she's not like, heh, good, those good-for-nothing kids. Like, it didn't... That would have spoiled a lot of it for me. And I'm glad it's more like, no, this is... It's just shit. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, Takahata's movies all do that really well. Whereas in Ghibli, like, it's really exaggerated and fantastical.
There's black and whites, yeah.
Yeah. In Takahata's movies, there's always this, like, really, really gray, amorphous area as it relates to, like, ethics and the characters.
Interesting.
Yeah, like, Only Yesterday has some of that. Pompoko has a lot of that, which is funny because it deals with Tanuki. It's, like, very Ghibli-esque. But
I want to watch it. After you said I'd like it, I really do want to watch it.
It's weird because like Pompoko has all of the makings of a Ghibli film, but it's dark. There's a lot of stuff in there that's like you're like, oh, okay.
Oh,
it's not as dark as this. But there are some. That's for another episode.
Have you ever seen?
We might watch that.
Have you ever seen the clip? It was from this one. I don't remember what it was, but like. This woman has to meet 10 people in a row and like then guess what their professions are or something. And this white woman walks up and she's like, "Hi, what's your name?" And then this black woman's like, it's like Lisa. I don't remember her name. I'm gonna say it's Lisa. And she goes, "Oh, I love your name." And then she goes, "Thanks. It was given to me by my mom because her sister was like a slave or something. Like it was my great aunt's name who was a slave." And then the white woman just goes, "Okay," like just kind of like a very like real like. Fuck, dude! Like it's just I don't know what's and like there's a part where it's like that's a hard open. That's an open of a kid dying in a subway right there.
Yeah, I think like as a war film, this comes on super strong. Like it has a lot of like obviously sort of like anti-war connotated segments to it, like people are dying, like war is bad, and it comes on really strong. It has like that cold open that you're just talking about, like that really straight shot there. But as a family movie, I think it's like much more paced and like has a much deeper development.
It really does. The brother never seems to show any signs of resentment he kind of does take on these problems, and it really shows him trying every single day to make her enjoy this life that sucks for them, and him trying his best, and like, you know, like he makes sure she like has her candy. She makes sure that he goes and like, let's play, let's piggyback ride. Like he tries, and it that shows that outshines a lot of the darkness.
Mm-hmm. There's also like one of the things I wanted to talk about. It's not really a scene, but that I found really interesting is like all of this symbolism around the title "Grave of the Fireflies." Because like you have the scene where she's actually making a grave for the fireflies, and that's there. But then of course you have like her grave, and then of course you have like Saita being thrown out, and like, you know, that whole thing when he dies. And there's like this stark parallel between like light from the fire bombings or light from the fireflies, and like death and like life and loss. Like they're all sort of intertwined there. And I really liked just picking up on that the second time around. I was like, oh, there's like sort of like a lot of symbolism happening with like the fireflies in general.
Mm-hmm. So I read somewhere they can be like representing of the bombs dropping, how quickly they die. It represents like the sister. Some say like they represent the kamikaze planes. And then there was another one I don't remember. But yeah. Honest, were you gonna say something?
Well, on the line of the fireflies, the one like kind of just weird thing that we reacted to watching it over here was when they released all the fireflies in the mosquito net. It's just like, damn, that's kind of gross though. Like it's beautiful, but it's gross.
There was so many too. Like they caught are fireflies just that dumb? Like to catch?
No, they're actually quite agile.
Because they had like a whole ass bucket.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a big ass bucket.
That shit fucked. And then she buries them all. I was just like, Jesus Christ. Like I was just like, this is weird. This is cute. This is beautiful, but this is weird.
Yeah, the writer knew what they were doing. Like the short story is highly regarded. In fact, the author is part of like this generation of authors that are called like creators of the ashes or something. It's like basically or the generation of ashes is what they're called. Like all these authors who came out of World War II in Japan.
You've heard of baby boomers. Welcome to the authors of Ash.
Yeah, that's an aggressive name. That's a cool band name.
That's a great band name. That's like a D&D badass like faction group they have to hopefully get on your side.
Yeah, right.
Damn. But actually it's just real people suffering every day.
Yeah. The most impactful scene for me this time around, I think, was the beginning. Just like the very, very opening, because like I had a much better context of what that was like the journey he had just been on. And so like as you get a much better feel for how someone might be thinking in that headspace, you know? And he literally like calls out to her like the second he dies too. So it's like a very aggressive, like emotional scene second time around, you know?
I definitely went back and watched that beginning because I was kind of confused a little bit. I'm like, what's going on? And like, I thought this was the kid in the beginning, and so it took me, I hit that like 10 minutes in, I watched it.
Yeah.
After I sped through the end to see if I missed the nuclear bomb happening.
God. I think that says a lot. That says a lot about our expectations for like Japanese coverage of World War II.
I legit thought this was about people suffering radiation. Like that's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
It's a movie whose reputation precedes it, you know.
Just to bring up the other movie in this corner of the world, the way I was literally just expecting them to address the bomb like somehow. Like the way the other movie addresses it is literally they're about to like, one of the characters is actually leaving for Hiroshima and is like packing up, and then they like see a light, like just the brightest light ever, and then they're like, what was that? Like, was that thunder or something? And then like she just finally says like, yeah, I don't want to leave, like coincidentally, but
I guess you could. It shows like, remember how he didn't understand the war ended? Like, they've been so secluded in their own little world that they don't even know these things. Like, I guess that's like the one thing, but I don't know. I agree with Andres. I expected something to be like they were like, oh, the non-conditional surrender. It wasn't like, oh, we had 2 cities become nothing.
Atoms.
Yeah, like what? Like, it's over. We suffered a heavy loss, and there's nothing wrong with it being over. And he's like, what about the Navy ships? He goes, fuck the Navy ships, bro. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, that guy sucks.
I think the like part of the movie that I have vague critiques on is the way they treat like the passage of time. Like, there's no real way of showing or like of knowing how long all this was happening.
There's the part where like it's raining and they're eating, and like just like he's reading and she's playing, and it's like, you've been here for like months.
Yeah, like that was literally the only placement. Like,
very jarring too.
Yeah, that's
and then he was like, the school it burned down. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, but that like the passing of time is also quite weird because it takes like the, it's sort of the Quentin Tarantino-y style of like ending first, and also you have like you have multiple layers of flashbacks. You have like both of their souls, spirits, whatever, their ghosts, looking at each event happening, and then in those events you have them reflecting, like having flashbacks to their family life beforehand. So it is very like time convoluted. Yeah, I didn't feel it wasn't that big of a problem this time around, but the first time I watched it, it was definitely difficult for me to like really conceptualize how terrible their living situation was, because of how long
when he
they
gets
stayed.
the flashlight and he's like ecstatic because now they can see at night. Like, that part was crazy.
I just put that together that's probably why he was really happy. He was also having like a semblance of childhood, like childlike play,
Is there a part where like they bomb like a home and he's like kind of happy about it?
Well, he's happy that the bombing is happening so he can go and steal it.
That's what it is. Okay. I thought it was like they bombed the aunt's house and he was like, yeah, fuck you. Like,
no.
Because he leaves the aunt's house when that happens, right? I don't know.
That's like way far into it. Like,
that's easily halfway into their time or even further in the cave.
Yeah, it's like before she starts getting real sick. Like
the part where he's like trying to sell the blankets and the woman just being like, this sucks. I think could have just been like, it is a way to show like how people are like frustrated and stuff, but I don't know, it was kind of like if a woman just was like, dude, I got nothing to give you, like we are all suffering out here, would have been good.
Yeah, it also mildly becomes a little bit about capitalism, like just a tiny bit, because there's like this issue of like food, but the food issue is coming from like wartime. Like you have to presume that in like pre-westernization Japan, that it would be not so weird to give food to like a child who needed it if you had it.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
Also,
it just has
just for reference, like when he says 4,000 yen. Well, you think about yen is like 400 is $4. In the other movie, they do clarify that like there's like people selling, or she buys pre-war, I think it's like caramel candy for like half a yen or something.
Whoa.
Like that.
Damn.
Like,
Wow.
the yen actually used to be like a more dollarish value before the war. So when they have 4,000 yen, like that's pretty significant.
Yeah. I imagine it was something like that, but that's wow. I had never.
Yeah, that's intense. That I definitely felt like when I read like 70,000 or whatever, not 70,000, 7,000 yen.
20,000 leads in
Yeah, they have a lot of money. No, when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay. I was thinking back to like what the 40s would have been like for inflation in America, and I was like, damn, that's still a lot of money, but it's even more money when you put it into like the perspective of yen being like an actual payable amount, like 1 yen.
Like that was literally their family's life savings, I think. Like,
yeah, that's a lot of money too.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one more scene that I'm reading my notes again. The part where he's like, I'm gonna go do this and this and this, and she just kind of like says like, don't go, like begging him to stay. That one really hurt me, and it really shows me something I think about a lot with like seeing just seeing different how people operate. There's the person who like wants to solve the problem, and the person who just kind of wants to like get time with that person to get it through. So it's like, I have this issue, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go fix it. It's like, no, just shut up and be here with me, and that's gonna help me a lot more. And like that too, like mindsets, because he has to think, I need to help her, I need to get her to eat, I need to do this, and then she's just like, you just need to be here, and my day will go so much better, and that'll help a million times more. And they're both warranted and fair. He's like, no, I gotta go get money so we can eat food, and you like, blah 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 blah. And she's like, I'm alone, I'm scared, this. Like, you haven't noticed I'm getting diarrhea all the fucking time, I'm itchy, I'm in pain, blah 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 blah. Like, all these other things are like, and it's very common. I imagine we can all think of experiences that where it's like you're talking to a person and you want to, I get this a lot where I just want to solve the problem, and then the person is just like, please just shut up and listen to me. Don't solve the problem. Talk with me. And so that one really stuck out to me because it's just, it's a kid. It's sad. It's hurtful.
Yeah. That entire vibe of desperation was really like an overarching sense of sadness for me.
Yeah.
In the movie, like they're extremely desperate to like find food, find water, find like all of these things. It gets pretty intense, and I think the movie does a very good job at like building that sense of like sadness, because even at the end when he finally has the food and all he's able to do is feed Setsuko like a piece of watermelon, and then she dies. So it's like,
and but her saying it tastes amazing or whatever, it gives me like the strongest bit of hope, and you can see it in his face too, of like, it's all gonna be okay now, everything's gonna be fine. And then nope, I'm just like, fuck, dude, this movie sucked. I hate this movie.
Yeah, all of the scenes I have that are like really that got to me are mostly just about how difficult it is for them to survive.
And I think that was kind of what I was trying to reflect on after watching it, like, because I feel like the more common movie thing to do would be him like desperately looking for work or something, especially after his aunt is telling him like, go help the country, go do something.
He could like go with
whatever.
the farmer and just help the farmer every day.
Yeah, I mean something like that. But I mean, as a framing it as a family movie, like
his priority is the sister.
He just wants to take care of the sister, and it's literally. I looked up on Google. Apparently, he's 14 years old. They don't say it in the movie, but like
I wouldn't have guessed
14-year.
Actually, no, I guess it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was younger, honestly, but
I thought he was like 12.
But he's
like
pretty mature. Like he's pretty mature for his age, and I don't know if that's like a thing
he's
of
mature,
just like,
but he isn't though,
Yeah,
because
that's true.
like
That's very true.
if he was mature, he would probably just kind of go back to the aunt and be like, please, like, we're dying, I'll do whatever you want, like, just help us out, please.
I guess the mature part I was seeing was like he again never reverted to anger with the sister. Like a kid taking care of another kid, eventually, like in all the movies, they get frustrated and are like, why this? Like, why can't you just do this? Blah 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 blah. Like, and he is just, even when it's hard for him, he's always so patient with her. And it's just like, that part blew me away as like, you know, a human being who gets angry. Like that part, I was always like, this kid's fucking better than any I'll ever be. But yeah, I'm just like, you know, that's the smartest thing in the world would have been just to be like, whatever you need us to do to keep me and my sister alive, I'll do it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's like as shitty as the aunt is, like, she isn't really posed in a way that you can, I mean, you can be mad at her, of course, but like, she's not really posed in a way where it's like, well, if you really think about it, like, I guess she has a point. Like,
we didn't see those months. If he's just inside all day with her, like, I can see the frustration building and yada yada yada, you know?
Yeah, that, and I was wondering, there's two like kind of symbolic things that I've noticed. One's symbolic, one's like not really symbolic. It's more just content, or like contextual type things. Relating to the aunt, at least, like I've seen a decent amount of anime where it's like somebody, like a character loses their entire family and doesn't, and like nobody really wants to take them in.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I was talking about it with David, and he said like, well, it's kind of just for everyone, isn't it? Like you can find that in all media, like it's not just Japanese. And it's like, yeah, I guess you're right, but there's also a lot of manga or anime specifically where I've seen that happen.
When you said that, I think of this meme I've been noticing in Naruto. Like, Naruto's... spoilers for Naruto. Naruto is the son of, like, one of the most important people in the village. And he's treated like absolute dog shit. And, like, not given any real help at all. Like, not given any care until he, like, gets older. So, like, I remember the third Hokage has, like, a tutor for his grandson that, like, is meant to teach him to be, like, an exemplary ninja. And Naruto, who is also a person that needs that, has no one. Everyone treats him directly like shit. Like, tons of issues. But yeah, tons of other, like, things where, like, I don't know, is it the collectivistic culture of just, like, you are viewed as no worth, therefore I don't want to take you on. But then it's like, our American culture is just like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and figure your own shit out. Like, we're not here to help you. Do we as a global society hate anyone and everyone? I don't know.
It has a lot to... Go for it.
Oh, maybe that's what it is just kind of like the authors being like, hey, we're supposed to be a collectivist culture, but like, where are you guys at now, like when it really matters for these people?
Like people who, you know, they pick and choose from whatever religion or creed they follow. Like, Well, it says do this, and it's like, what about this part? It's like, I ignore that part because it's inconvenient for me.
Yeah. I mean, well, Japanese familial lineage is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so I do think that there's like an element of like family pride and pride in general in Japanese culture. So especially, we're talking especially pre-war or like pre-westernization. That like that was such a big thing that it was probably even more important for them at that time, because it still permeates all of the pop culture that we consume. You know, like you think about like a lot of shonen and the lineage, right? Like you just brought up a good example, Alexi, about Naruto. So it's like I think it's a common enough thing that that's probably what is contributing a lot to it, is like your dad, like there's such pride in the family structure that when it gets broken, there's almost like a tabooness to it, you know. That's sort of how it felt to me.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was gonna reference is this movie caused me to notice it. The Japanese really have a fascination with trains as like as like a symbol of moving on to the afterlife.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Yeah, like the
This is
first
true,
thing he
yeah.
does when or after he dies in the beginning is boards a train. There's a movie based on a novel called Night on the Galactic Railroad where they
That is the
spoil
coolest
it.
name I've ever fucking heard in my entire life.
I mean, minor spoilers, but like major spoilers for that movie, I guess. But I mean, the whole concept is that it's somebody moving along with his friend to the afterlife to see them off.
Oh, they're cats.
And I guess it's not necessarily an afterlife, more just like something beyond the like corporeal realm. Like Evangelion has a ton of things in the train car. Random example, but there's a anime we watched. I forget what it's called, but it's about a girl that travels from the future to the past to kind of learn the value of loving people and life again or whatever. And the way she moves from that is through a train car. No, it's through a bus, but
Same deal.
same
Public
different-
transit.
Yeah, like
A place where you're not the driver and you're going along for the ride.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Penguin Drum, that is like entirely based around there's so many scenes in the subway, and the subway car becomes what they refer to as the place of destiny. Like
There are a couple I have. Mirai, which is a film. It's like another Ghibli-esque film. I forgot the director, but they're one of the directors I really like. And it's all about like childlike innocence. But one of the scenes is about the child, the main character, essentially venturing down into a subway, and the subway is like a demonic thing that has to do with like hell or like moving on. It's meant to be a scary thing for the baby character, but and then there's also for the video game fans out there, Aegis Rim 13 Sentinels. It's like a really popular visual novel game that has to do with giant robots and kaiju.
Oh boy.
There is a section in one of the visual novel arcs that is about like a dreamlike state and reliving like a Groundhog Day scenario, and it's happening on a subway, and it's all of these like weird dreamy things happen on the subway. So yeah, there's like a lot of I agree. I've seen quite a few of examples of that.
In American culture, at least, the show The Good Place has a train, particularly that takes them to different aspects of the afterlife. And it's, it's kind of like there's a similarity there. I will disagree. There's no trains in Naruto, so I think it's a bad point, Andra. Sorry. Naruto's true anime.
Damn. Naruto needs to get on that. The Naruto subway.
A Thunder Mountain Railroad, we all die on that one. Can't think of any other trains in my life, actually. Thomas
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain's kind of scary, honestly. There's points where you're on it, I am on it, and I'm like, it's dark. It's dark, I'm going fast.
Yeah, I think that's a really happy note to end things on instead of a really sad note. So
one thing I will say though is
we should have closing remarks after
For sure.
Yeah. It's probably just because I finished watching it, but there is a couple parallels between Penguin Drum and Grave of the Fireflies that I was noticing. Obviously, there's not a historical thing to do with it, but like they both are very like extremely family oriented, although Penguin Drum kind of more has to do more with like that feeling of family, less but yeah, there were just like a couple things after watching the movie where I was like, there's a couple things you can draw like straight lines to,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that really speaks to like the timelessness of some ideals and concepts, like family, right? Like like unless there was like scene for scene comparisons, which there could very well have been given the importance of the movie to like animation.
No, they're more just like general vibes of like nobody's starving in Penguin Drum.
Maybe I'll watch Penguin Drum now.
there are young girls dying, but there's
nice.
Spoiler.
It literally happens in the first episode. I don't know what to tell you.
Damn.
I read the
episode experience.
I sometimes just avoid like the stuff you guys talk about because I do really want to watch all the things you guys love, and so I never looked up Penguin Drum, so I just looked it up and opening line for the plot: a terminally ill girl. I'm like, oh okay, so maybe this isn't for Alexi.
I fucking love Penguin Drum.
Yes,
you just
have us do the first volume or something.
It's a very, very, very different experience, the first half and the second half. So I honestly would like, aside from the first episode, which is just like a fucking like weight on you, like the rest is just kind of goofy. So I kind of
looks goofy.
I probably might have us watch it on the podcast eventually.
Okay.
But I love it, and there's as I said earlier, the last episode had me seconds from sobbing, and I've seen it like 4 times. So
yeah,
it still gets to me. It's 24.
Okay, nice.
So it's longish,
and it's an anime before a manga. So we're watching the source material.
Yeah.
Is it an anime before a manga? Wow. I can't think of many other things that have done that.
Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, exactly. I just can't think of any right now.
I think
the Bible, Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, Passion of the Christ came before the Bible.
Yo.
specific director for Penguin Drum is kind of, I think, fairly known for his original stories.
That's cool. Final thoughts.
Yeah. Are there any closing thoughts as to Grave of the Fireflies or anything pertaining therein?
I have a tremendous respect for Saito.
Yeah, Saita. Yeah,
Saita?
Saita.
I have a tremendous respect for him as a character, as like an older brother myself. This movie made me very sad, but I do think it's. We were saying it's an important watch. I as more we talk about it, I think it's an important watch for how good it is, how good of a family story it is. But the more I'm realizing it's really, like the director was saying, not an anti-war story. So from that perspective, I think there's many other things that you can watch, maybe that give off that message, if that's what you're looking for. But I think as a family story, this thing is really interesting in a very unique perspective. I don't know what else to say about that. But I was hooked. I was like watching and like really wanting to find out what happens next. And also really not wanting to find out what happens like at the same time. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah. I'm gonna call bullshit on the not an anti-war movie sentiment. It was obviously created with that in mind, or without that in mind, I'm sure. Because, I mean, what else can we do but take the director's word for it?
Yeah.
But also media takes on a life of its own after the fact, and you can't control that. So this is definitely an anti-war movie. Like,
this movie can only exist because war happened.
Yes, but it also takes the standpoint of this terrible thing is happening because the war is happening.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to.
Therefore, war, as a result, is terrible.
I agree with Andres. What a rare thing for me to say. I love Andres. I always agree with Andres. This is my joke for this. I think it came off the exact wrong way of me saying it.
That being said, I did get the impression of this is a very important movie, especially probably to show somebody who has never seen the Japanese perspective on World War II. Like, I unfortunately had already kind of experienced it from the other movie, In This Corner of the World. We will probably watch that on the podcast, but I'm going to put that off for a while now.
Thank you.
It's a good idea.
But yeah, I mean, just watching it at the point in my life that I did, I don't know if I got everything, or I don't know if it was impactful as it would have been in like a different time in my life. Like, it kind of taught me that maybe I don't want to have kids. Like,
damn.
there's some bad shit in this world. Maybe it's better that I don't, but
Maybe it's better to just adopt kids than you just.
It did make me feel bad about my outside life, though, because after finishing it, I was like, oh, the way Alexi described watching A Silent Voice, saying it's an important movie, people should watch it, but I never want to watch it again, is literally how I felt after watching this. So I apologize to Alexi for making you do that with The Silent Voice.
Back to back for Alexi. Yeah, I don't know. It's. I guess, again, I said to reiterate in the beginning, A Silent Voice was like hard to watch because I don't think it has to happen. I don't think we have to bully people. And this one's different because war doesn't have to happen either, but this war was real, and therefore it's like sadder in a different way for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I can watch this again. Like, I also don't really know what I'm supposed to get out of it from multiple viewings. Like, it happened. Like, there's no real lesson, and I mean, it kind of just speaks to the way I appreciate media. Is just I like it when it doesn't have to be happy, but I like there to kind of be like a point to it. And this kind of just felt like the point was this was terrible. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of knew that already, though. Like,
this was a person wanting to tell their story, I guess, is the only thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was here for. And good for them. End of sentence.
I mean, not good for them. Like,
good for them that they can get this out. Good for them for the catharticness of it all. Like, good save, Andres. Good save. Definitely wasn't aware of what I was saying at the moment of time.
But, like, yeah, it's just kind of like the movie Do the Right Thing. Like, that movie is very over the head with its message, like, and it's not a happy one, but it's also just kind of like, this is what you're supposed to get from this, and you're supposed to evaluate like who is in the right and what we can do to change the
you like
situation.
Things to have messages.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be a happy message or anything. And I guess this one does have a message. This definitely does have a message that, like, appreciate your family, war is bad, and appreciate what you got. But also, like, I know that.
Here, I guess this is, to go back to what you're saying in comparison to my silent voice thing. To me, the silent voice is like, learn to forgive yourself and accept yourself, and people with differences are not meant to be ridiculed. Is like kind of like two of the main things I can come up with right now. And to me, a person who has tons of issues, from a sister who was deaf, who had passed, like all these other things, I was just like, this movie sucks because I'm in this movie. Like that's how it feels. And so I felt like the same thing of like, I know these things and it sucks and I'm sad. And it's kind of just like, I don't know. Manny, save me from this nothing that I've become.
My pile of dirt. Yeah.
I don't know if that was a reference to her burying the Fireflies, or if you saw that one tweet where the girl goes like, my boyfriend doesn't look at me, but he looked twice at a pile of free dirt, and then all the people in the replies are like, yo, there was free dirt? Was it good dirt? Where'd you find the dirt? It's one of my favorite tweets.
It's a reference to the 9 Inch Nails / Johnny Cash song Hurt. But
I'm not good enough to know.
Yeah, I agree with both of your sentiments about it. I think this movie, so yeah, I'll say some things that have already been said. It's like a very important movie historically, animation wise, like culturally, ethically, like all of these things, they're important. But like I was saying, on second viewing, the big thing for me wasn't the war message that came through. I focused way more on the relationship and sort of like tried to understand human nature and empathy from that perspective. So like, I think again, echoing what we said already, I think as like a family message type of movie, this does extremely well. And for me, there would be like reason to go back and watch it for that. But yeah, but as like a anti-war movie, I get like Andres said, I get the point already. And I get the point about the family thing too. I think it's just it's compelling enough for me to own it, so I will therefore be watching it again. I think in terms of like maybe the ideal viewing situation for this, like someone who like you said, Andres, earlier, I think you said it really well. Someone's first interaction with the Japanese perspective of World War II, this would be like an amazing first movie. And it would have a lot of impact as it relates to like understanding war from
a
multiple
person who's only
perspectives.
seen war from like an American perspective.
Yeah, or even war in general. Like if it's their first exposure to, I don't know, my first like big exposure when I was young to like an obviously anti-war movie was like Full Metal Jacket, right?
I've
Like-
only seen the training parts of Full Metal Jacket. I'm one of those people who never finished the whole movie.
There are
Yeah, you-
definitely a lot of those people. So
You got the worst part of the, or you got the like some of the harder parts of the movie.
I
for
think
the
at the
record.
time I was just like too young to really get like. It's kind of like fun in that beginning because like just watching them interact and do stuff, and then like the bathroom scene happens, and I was just like, oh, I gotta get out of here. Like this is Alexi is not ready for these moments in his life.
Yeah, so like I agree. When I saw this movie, it wasn't really that impactful of like a war message, but it had enough of like, when I first saw this movie, I should say, it had enough of the Japanese twist to it that I found it valuable, but definitely not like the major thing. I do think it's a really good story, and I think that this would do, like, if this was something that what I'm going to suggest is not a good idea, but for those days in Japanese class when you have a substitute teacher, just like throw this on and
Dude,
oh man,
that'll
these have such
Imagining
terrible
pain.
ideas. Like,
I mean I feel like that would be where it's most useful if you're talking about like
yeah, I mean,
art's
just-
use, I guess, you know.
I mean, just like for the kids in history class, just like show them this. Like,
yeah.
there's some awful conditions happening. Like, and I guess really the only things I got out of it were just like very negative things towards people and like very nihilistic things, and I just kind of feel like that's kind of like a lazy conclusion. Like if the conclusion is that it doesn't matter, then I feel like then why then what did I get out of this? Like
Yeah, that's fair. For some like context, Takahata saw the original short story as like a traditional double suicide story. Even though it's not, that's like a genre of story. It's like he saw it similarly to the double suicide
all
archetype.
the double suicides are usually like romance based.
They're usually
right?
romance based and like
like
the example of Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. I read
Well, I
that,
mean,
and I was there's
It's
like
a
elements of
spin,
it. But.
kind of, but
Say again, Andre?
it's a spin kind of.
I guess. To me, it's more so. I don't.
I mean,
I
they're
think
trying
to
to
me,
take-
It's
They're
family
trying to
oriented.
take their
doubles.
fate in their own hands, and
Yep.
doing so, like they're just not prepared for it. They just can't
guess.
handle it.
I guess to me, the suicide to me is the decision to get to. The decision to die.
Yeah. It's
And-
definitely
and,
not.
And
This
also
is-
the romance part. Those two
This
parts are
is their
so
decision
clearly-
to live, and they can't do it. So
Yeah, it's like it's a parallel. I think it's a stretch, but
Yeah.
I agree. It's like a stretch, but the way that there's like some interesting backstory with the way that Akiyuki Nosaka, the original author, how that era of literature interacted with like French literature, and there's like some inspirations across mediums, and so there is like a little bit of like from like an art history perspective, there's a little bit of like back and forth there. So I think that sort of contributed a little bit to that classification. But it's like a family oriented, like, double suicide in terms of the effect story.
I mean,
Yeah, and I do agree. It comes off nihilistic. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of what I personally got from it. But
yeah, it's impactful for me because I like sad things. Like that's like it is able to get me there into that headspace that I enjoy. So,
but I was meaning to mention that I've really only experienced this once before, and you would know from the album Hospice, like that album makes me kind of feel physically ill, and I covered it at the opening of the episode, but like watching this movie, like, it made me kind of feel physically ill. Like at no point other than like kind of when he's crying about his mom dying, because it's like the point in the movie where he finally lets it set in, like, that she's gone. But like all the other points, like, I just felt like sick to my stomach rather than like actually like wanting to cry. Like,
yeah.
and I don't know what that is, but I think it's just probably filling me with like anxious dread. Like, it's probably just like a existential crisis going on without my knowing. So
Yeah. With regards to Hospice, I think the thing that really kicks it into the other headspace for me is because of the personal association, right? Like that, like for me, I can associate with some topical content there. Unfortunately. But like, and I think the same thing sort of happens here, like slightly, just slightly for me, but less so. And that's why I'm like more on the fence with what you feel, or I more identify with what you feel, which is like the dread and not really the extreme sadness that like provokes an emotional, like, bodily response in that way.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And it also speaks to your silent voice feelings, Alexi.
I think I just hate movies.
They're so easy to consume, though, for the podcast.
That's true. I know.
All right. Perfect time to talk about my recommendation, because it is not a movie, but it is an album.
But it is a movie soundtrack.
It is a soundtrack.
No. So this next coming week, I am recommending the album Scrambles by Bomb the Music Industry. We spoke too soon about props, because I'm going to go grab the record real quick.
Damn. Ooh, I'm excited for this. I've been meaning to listen to Bomb the Music Industry a little bit more intently. So.
I have no idea what kind of genre they are.
You are in for a treat, my friend.
You said this before.
Sorry.
And then you made me watch kids die.
Here it is.
Yeah.
You actually kind of are in for a treat, because the way I would describe this album and Bomb the Music in general, or Bomb the Music Industry in general, is like kind of a frantic type of pop punk. Like,
that does speak to Alexi's interests.
It's not very hard to really get into, because it's literally the one record I've played on my turntable and had my roommates be like, "Oh, what is this?" Like, like they actually liked it. So, whereas I think I did play like Awake But Still in Bed on it once, and like I could kind of feel like I swear I heard like a couple doors close, and it's just like, fuck you, I don't care. I love this album. But,
Good, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Just I've low-key already taken notes on this album and have like multiple pages of background on Bomb the Music Industry.
From years past. I have notes.
Can you remind us? It's Scrambles, right?
Scrambles, yeah. Bomb. I'll just throw some quick background. Bomb the Music Industry is kind of... It's a really strange band, and that's kind of why I want to talk about them, because what Fugazi means to the DIY scene of like the 90s and stuff like that, where they really established the like ethos and what it means to be in the DIY scene. Bomb the Music Industry and Jeff Rosenstock, the lead singer, kind of established what it meant for the internet age. So naturally, or a lot of DIY music is very punk based. Bomb the Music Industry is also kind of known for being... It was definitely birthed out of a ska band. There's definitely some ska elements on here. So.
It says here on the you might also like on the Spotify, the essential ska.
Yeah, I mean people call Bomb the Music Industry a ska band, and I think like there's ska influences, but I'd say there's really only like one ska punk song on this album.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sort of eclectic, but it's their fourth album. Their first album is kind of more of a steady band. The rest of the ones were just kind of Jeff Rosenstock getting all his friends on it. Like Bomb the Music Industry kind of started as a solo project. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of the midpoint in their discography where they were kind of drawing from a bunch of different sources of influence. It has a lot to do with like working and capitalism and whatnot. So at least that's why I connect with it. There's a song called 25, so I was like literally thinking about recommending this like as my second one, just so I could still talk about it while I was 25.
That's funny.
But it's just kind of the perfect album for people in our age range, lyric wise.
I just heard Paramore's After Laughter album, recommended by a very big fan of the podcast, and we were talking about it, and I listened to it without knowing the titles. There's a song called 26, and it's about like people like kind of giving up hope and like wanting to be young and like experience life again. And I was like, man, I'm 26. Like, fuck this shit, man.
The thing about
it's a good album.
The thing about Jeff Rosenstock as a writer in general is that there's not a lot to dissect in his lyrics, because it's all very like stream of consciousness, and you know exactly what he's saying. So you're probably, it's either going to connect or not. Like, I think it's very beneficial and beneficial in that way. Like there's just a lot that I think people of our age can really identify with, because he was our age when he wrote it and writing about problems he was having at our age. So
he was number one.
He was number one.
He was number one. This is gonna be cool.
I'm really excited about this one. It is probably just gonna turn into me spouting my political agenda.
This happens every time. Why can't we talk about dead cowboys like we're supposed to on this podcast?
Dead boys.
No.
So
Well, this is exciting. I'm good. I'm happy
Dead
for this
sisters
again.
and brothers.
Jesus Christ, Manny. Like, can we cut that one out, please?
We can if you want.
No,
It's fine. Yeah, I'm excited for this. I was telling Alexi, I'm not sure if you heard, but I've been like meaning to listen to more Bomb the Music Industry a little bit more intently, because they do have like a very interesting musical space they live in.
yeah,
Very DIY. It seems like extremely DIY.
I was very in between choosing this record or the last full album they did called Vacation. I've really only started listening to Vacation as of recent, but it's very similar. But I think that this album specifically serves as primer for another album I want to get to in the near future.
Damn. The honest recommendation universe.
It goes deep, honestly. It's all been building
You
up
made a
to
whole
get to
podcast
this
just
one
for this.
album. Kind of, yeah. Like, it's all been building up to the next album recommendation I make, if I'm being honest.
That's fresh. I like that. I will go ahead.
I captured. This is like the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Home is where's the sun. This is the Holy Ghost. The next album will be the Father. So,
What the fuck? Audience, what the fuck?
and it's really all just pertaining to the current emo scene, if I'm being honest. Even though Bomb the Music Industry is fundamentally not emo, they're just like kind of associated because the emo scene is very DIY.
Don't get me all excited with this emo talk. Are we gonna be in deep?
Catch Alexi
Not
just talking about My
really.
Chemical Romance and Black Parade for 20 minutes.
I will do us a favor and not bring up hospice on this podcast. Because like I got really into it despite how sad I was after listening to it, and I will do us a favor and not recommend that ever.
Damn, if it's too sad for Manny, I'm wondering if it might just have no effect on me.
Does
that make sense?
I had to stop listening to music after I heard it. I sat in silence for an hour.
It would probably have a little bit of an effect on you, just a little bit, just a little bit.
What's it
Topic-
called? Hospice.
Oh,
what?
don't
Here I go. I'm doing it. Album
you will have something that will
by the
will-
Antlers.
Yeah. Oh my god, you got the fucking vinyl. There it is. That's hot shit.
Is that the?
That's the album.
Oh my
little-
god! I'm reading
in
the concept.
foil,
It's
so-
terrible.
Don't read the concept. It's the concept is the thing that will destroy any hope you have for ever having a relationship ever again.
You
with
you
anyone,
doubt
with
my
anyone.
optimism. You doubt my optimism.
If you let it in, it
Let's
will
end this
eat
fucking
you.
podcast. Let's end this episode.
Plug time.
Uh,
Subscribe to SUSSED Pod on social media.
Subscribe to
Please.
SUSSED on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts.
and Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, all the podcasts tell you to leave a review. Whatever.
Do whatever you
like, do what you want.
Do whatever you want.
Love your family. Well, plug that.
Second time we've plugged that, but It's
That's how
very
good it
just
is. That's how
a
much you recommend it.
general- It's a general good thing to recommend.
Go watch Grave of the Fireflies alone on Christmas morning.
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Go listen to Hospice after
this.
you go listen to Hospice on a rainy day and reconsider everything. That's my rec.
Just appreciate what you got, man.
Ooh.
That's my recommendation. Just
Go take a walk. Go have fun. Enjoy the sun if you have sun. If you don't, enjoy that the sun's not there sometimes. You know, it's all good. We can end the podcast now. It's all over. We don't need to be sad today.
We love you.